Yeah, I'm just going to go over another option here. It's called a disclaimer trust. So here again, we've got the joint trust at the top, which is separated. It's held together by the squiggly line of Velcro. And into that open box, while the two spouses are alive, we put 100% of the community property and 100% of the separate property of each spouse. Upon the death of the first spouse, we still have the same separation or identification of, in this sample, for example, if husband dies first, husband's 50% of the community property and 100% of his separate property. And then we also have, in this situation, the wife is the survivor. We've got 50% of her community property and 100% of that separate property. So because the wife is the surviving spouse, those assets will then go into the survivor's trust, which again is an open box, and that trust remains amendable and revocable. Okay, so what happens with the decedents or the husbands? 50% community property and 100% separate property. In a disclaimer trust, what ends up happening is the default is that these assets will go into the survivor's trust. So it's all to the survivor's trust. I think in our previous videos we referred to it as simple trust. The correct term is really all to the survivor's trust. And that is the default mechanism. But with the disclaimer trust, if the surviving spouse within 9 months of date of death exercises what we call a qualified disclaimer with the IRS and says, no, I actually don't want these assets to come into the survivor's trust. So this is the wife who would be executing it in our example here. If the wife executes a qualified disclaimer within 9 months of date of death, then the husband's assets will be placed into the decedent's trust. Okay. And all of the protections that we mentioned in the previous videos, including the remarriage protection or the mandatory prenup, those terms will apply. The difference between the AB and AB trust, which is an AB split, is that it actually mandates that upon the death of the first spouse, the decedent's assets will indeed go into the decedent's trust here. But here with the disclaimer, the default is that it is first going into the survivor's trust, and it is only upon the action of the surviving spouse saying that they don't want those assets to go into the survivor's trust that in that case, then the decedent's trust will be created and funded. The terms of those trusts, again, are irrevocable because the decedent is no longer alive, and then we can build in the remarriage protections there.